Hello, my name is Derek Taylor, and if you're watching this video, you are taking my HIST 140 America 21877 course online with Johnson County Community College. And here's just a little introductory video to give you an introduction to the course. I'm going to go over the syllabus for you, talk about what's required of you, and just give you a general overview of what you're going to be doing of the course and what it involves. And as I mentioned before, my name is Derek Taylor. I have a PhD in history from the University of Kansas. I've taught this course for about 10 years at Johnson County Community College, and I've done it online for a while now, so you're in good hands in terms of doing the overview of the course. And just to go over the basics, if you go to the Canvas, if you haven't gone already, that's the online platform we use to do online courses at Johnson County Community College. If you go there, you click on the little section that says syllabus. Should bring up the syllabus for this course. I'm going to go over it, but talk about the course and what it covers more generally here in a second. If you go to the top of the syllabus, you'll see my contact information. I give you my office hours. Some of you I know are in other countries, actually, or other states, so you can't do that, but I'll be available. The best way to reach me, by the way, is via email. I check it constantly, so I'll try to get back to you within the day as well as I can. I'm pretty good about that for the most part. And a little brief overview of the course itself. This is a survey course. It's a general course. We're going to cover the history of the United States from its founding and the colonial period all the way up to Reconstruction just after the Civil War. And basically our goals in this course to get you familiar with the basic study of history as professional historians do it. So things like basic methods of historical research. We'll have you look at some primary and secondary sources. Again, reading primary sources, reading documents accurately is one thing I'll try to do in this course and have you be tested on. And then a basic knowledge of important people, trends, events in American history, other sorts of developments, economic, political, social, religious, so on and so forth. And in terms of just what we're going to cover in this course, I say we, in terms of this online interaction we have, we're talking about, colonization, from the period where Europe, for the first time in the 15th and 16th centuries, becomes a major player on the world stage, sends out colonies across the world, discovers the existence of the North American continent. That'll lead to the founding of the United States eventually under the auspices of the Kingdom of Great Britain. And so you're going to get the story of the founding of the country, the different peoples that make it up. This is one of the things modern historians tend to emphasize, is the diversity of peoples that it was. And I'm a British historian by training. It is a British colony. We have British forms of government. Our ancestors of our modern form of government is British. But from the very beginning, you have an intermingling of peoples, natives to the North American continent, Europeans, and of course, African slaves were imported there from an early period as well. So we'll emphasize this. And then, of course, the founding of the Republic itself, how the break comes with the British government, what the colonies were about. You know some of this from your high school days, but you get a little more in depth here to a certain degree, and a little different perspective perhaps. And then up through the creation of the American Republic, the forming of the Constitution, and then the eventual breakdown of that consensus, which leads to the Civil War, and then its immediate aftermath with Reconstruction. So the United States becomes a nation, and it becomes a nation, by the way, well, actually becomes a state really before it has a real nation. People knew that, as you'll see, at the time, that the Americans didn't have a shared history that, say, people in England had or France had. And so the founding of the American government, what's one of the reasons it's so important to us is because our government kind of creates us in a way that other nations haven't. And of course, these things are all still with us. We still debate about what the Constitution meant and its role. Those sorts of things still occupy us. And so you're getting here a narrative and an understanding of what happened, why the United States was founded, what it means to people, what it means throughout the world. And give you some readings about it probably you haven't seen before. You're going to get parts of original sources. We're going to get stuff from people at the time. I'll show you this in a moment. That's the general overview of the course. In terms of going along with the syllabus, course requirements can be rated on basically three types of assignments. There'll be written assignments, that's 40% of your grade. They're weighted to 40% of your grade. quizzes, which are also 30% of your grade, and then weekly quizzes, we'll get to in a moment, and then discussion/participation. We'll show you what that means in a moment. You'll be doing a lot of this through weekly online discussions and discussion fora. There is an opportunity for extra credit. We'll talk about this in a moment. It involves more reading, so I don't think most of you are going to do it, but you should do it. It's a good book. I'll give you a chance to read. Then you see the grading scale, traditional 190% A, 89 to 80% B, and so on and so forth. You have 2 required texts in this course. America, A Concise History, Volume 1 to 1877. It's the 6th edition of that work by Bedford St. Martins. It has the ISBN number on your syllabus. It's important you get that edition if you can, because there are later editions of it. First of all, they're more expensive, but also it's a slightly different edition, so the chapter assignments aren't the same. So that's why you need to have that one. The second book is Major Problems in American History, Volume 1 to 1877. And by major problems, it's essentially a source book. That is to say, it has mostly primary sources, excerpts of documents, but also images from the periods in question, the events and people we'll be studying for the next 15, 16 weeks. So it's a source reader. It also has some secondary essays by modern historians who will talk about those events, and they'll sometimes refer to the actual sources you have in the reader. But it's partly I give you that textbook because it gives you, first of all, first-hand accounts of these events that you have to read about, but also introduces you to the distinction, which is fundamental for modern academic history, which is primary sources, secondary sources. Primary sources are the bedrock of modern history, stuff that came directly from the event in question, right? Those are we tend to value those highly because they come from the period you're studying. You want direct witnesses of what happened, right? Not what people said about it a couple decades later. And so that's all the distinction between a secondary and a primary source basically is. For our purposes, secondary sources are what people later on say, looking back at what people said at the time. And it may not always be meaningful for you, but it's something I wanted to introduce you to. And it's kind of fun. It is definitely interesting to see what people at the time thought about events and great events in history, American history. Sometimes it's not always quite what we think, so it's an interesting thing to do. So those are the texts. By the way, those are both available as electronic editions, I think. If you need to get a handle on those, that's also fine to do that. I urge, by the way, if you're not anywhere near campus, you should get this stuff through Amazon or some other online bookstore because it's a lot cheaper. So just do that. FYI. In terms of course evaluation, you will have discussion, as I mentioned, every week. Every week there'll be one forum for you to post questions concerning that week's readings. There'll be a list of readings for each week from the textbook, from the source reader, and you'll be tasked with posting 3 questions each week about the readings, and also responding to 3 questions to your fellow students, their questions and comments by Friday each week. Basically, it's due at the end of each week on a Friday. You'll see this in the course schedule. It's marked out, but I also want you to tailor your questions as much as you can. Basically, you're required to do 3 things, right? One question should be about a primary source in major problems. That is to say, I want at least one question to be about, okay, those documents, those writings, those images that come from the time frame of the event in question itself, right? At least one question about this. Sometimes also I'll provide primary sources myself for you. They'll be on Canvas. I'll show you where they're at in a moment. There should be at least one question pertaining to one of the secondary sources in major problems as well. That is to say, one of those in the major problems, each chapter will have a series of primary sources about an event or a particular topic, the American Revolution, something like that. And there'll be 2 essays by modern historians. At least one of your questions to address one of those essays. There'll be 2 essays by different historians and address that. And then 3, one more general question on that topic for discussion for that week, which can be about anything. And I do this to try to get you to address the sources. Try to be as specific as you can when you're getting into discussion. Give your fellow students something to hang their hat on. The more vague you are, the harder sometimes it is to answer. But if you give, say, a page number, or you read this, or a quotation from the text, sometimes it's easier for them to respond to. And again, some of you sometimes I think you get a lot more out of it if you just ask sort of, factual questions about, okay, what happened here, what happened there. It's not nearly as, doesn't get discussion going. I want you guys to learn from each other as much as possible. It's not on the syllabus. I will be, by the way, responding to some of your questions each week, diving in, maybe ask a question of my own to help you out a little bit, but also to respond. But it helps you to, that's how you learn, is through dialogue and through discussion and stuff like this. And so that's what my aim is for you to do and to learn this stuff this way. And it's graded, by the way, also says in the syllabus you'll receive 12 points per module discussion, right? So 2 points apiece for each question, 2 points apiece for each response to your fellow students. That's 12 points per week. So that's the first thing. That's what a lot of you'll be doing every week. A second thing you'll be doing every week are quizzes. Each module contains a quiz on the assigned readings for that week. And the quizzes are based on the chapter reading in America, A Concise History. This is to give you, testing on the knowledge basis, the background of the basic outline of what we're studying, again, in the textbook. So it is kind of like guided reading and discussion. For the quizzes, you can utilize your textbook. I couldn't force you to do it anyway, but it's mostly to get you to try to recall and remember the basic facts about each topic. The quizzes are not timed. However, you only get one attempt, so don't start it until you're ready, and take your time. You should have a little bit of time. Set aside some time to do this. They're also doing a weekly basis, usually on a Saturday. It'll mention this in the course schedule. And then finally, writing assignments. You have 3 short writing assignments throughout the semester on dates given in the course schedule, in which you'll have to utilize sources, either from major problems or from stuff that I give you, and I actually do. A couple of them give you sources, which I posted. And you can also utilize, anything else you want to use for those, but you need to use those sources in terms of the writings. I'll go over those, by the way, in a separate video to explain what they're about and kind of see. It's laid out in the module, the writing assignments module, but still I'll give you a little more help in another video. And they're all fairly short, but they're also due on the specified dates in the course schedule. Class policies. Now, discussion questions, responses due every week on Friday. Quizzes by the Saturday that week mostly. Those are due on a weekly basis. As far as other assignments, I do not allow makeup work except for grave emergencies. Grave emergencies are a death or a major illness in your family, to someone you know close to you, requiring hospital visits, that sort of thing, for which you must submit documentation. I'm going to give you makeup work for it. Vacations, business trips, work schedules do not excuse missed assignments. And late work will only be accepted with an excused absence. So again, this is an online course. I require weekly work, but you do have a lot of leeway to arrange your schedule as you see fit, and you have to sort of conform to my schedule to get this done. Seems fair to me. Mostly I've had a problem. And by the way, I've had students, I understand students do have sometimes major emergencies. I've had them, you don't have to do anything but scan, like if you went to the hospital, scan the doctor's note or whatever, or scan something from the doctor, send it to me. I'm willing to work with you, but I do have fairly hard and fast rules, so keep that in mind. In terms of my availability, I already mentioned, I'll try to be as available as possible. Send me emails, I'll respond. If you're in the neighborhood, if you want to see me on campus, I'm more than willing to do that. I've done that before. You can just come to campus. My office is actually listed on the top of the syllabus if you need to do that. Then finally, plagiarism. I did not abide academic dishonesty of any sort. Cheating for quizzes won't be a problem, obviously, but particularly for the papers. You must not plagiarize the material you put in there. You shouldn't have to, because it's mostly you're not going to be doing things of original research, as you'll see, except for stuff taken from the books I've assigned. And you must turn them in, as you'll see. You'll be drop boxes for each of the assignments on Canvas. They must be turned in the Dropbox. They must be in a format that the box accepts. I think it's PDF and Word are the only ones we accept. So if you have a Mac, please convert it to PDF before you put it in there for me. It also gives you a brief definition of plagiarism. 2 things, basically: representing all or part of someone else's work as your own, or copying anything, including wording, no matter how short, from something written by someone else without citing the source. If you did not write it, you must cite it. And again, you don't have to put put everything in quotation marks and write it down exactly. But if you're paraphrasing in a big long paragraph, I expect to see some citations there. Otherwise, I'm going to get suspicious. No offense to you. You're wonderful students, but a lot of you are first-time college students. You don't write that well. I can tell when you just sort of lifted it from somebody else. It's not that difficult. It's a little extra work. Just put it in your own words. Don't worry about it. But I take it deadly seriously, as I forgot to mention there. It can include an immediate F on your assignment and perhaps further penalties if you do this, and yes, I give Fs. So don't do that. I would take it deadly seriously. I've done it before. We'll do it again, but mostly students are good with this. And the assignments are pretty simple. If they're kind of difficult for you, I understand. You shouldn't have to do that. Next part of the schedule just gives you the course schedule by week and by subject. Sort of goes, there'll be a module for each chapter in the textbook as it goes along, so you have that laid out there, the readings, mostly chapter and page number. Have you read, for this week, the first reading will be the introduction in major problems. Do read over that. It will mention things about primary sources versus secondary sources. We'll give you some of those distinctions and talk about that sort of thing. As well as the introductory readings on the beginnings of the founding of America, going back to the colonial world. It's called Colliding Worlds. It's about the clash of European and Native and African civilizations, out of which our country emerges. And going on up through, you'll see this, I won't go through the schedule itself. All the dates should be laid out there. Has the dates for when discussions due, quizzes are due, and then writing assignments. The first one will be due at the end of February, February 22nd. The second one will be due at the beginning of April, and then the last one is due toward the end of the semester, like very end of it, during finals week, May the 20th. So you have 3 short assignments interspersed between what is essentially discussion courses. So I do my for the most part my face-to-face courses. We learn by discussion. And if you're wondering, again, they're big things, by the way. Maybe I'll do this a little bit when I have my own questions, but they are big topics. They're inexhaustible. Lots of things, of course, in our nation's history are worth talking about and remembering because they relate to us. One of the obvious ones you'll get in this, of course, is the conduct of the colonizing peoples toward the natives, right? This is still a big issue today. The effects of this, the introduction of slavery, African slavery, into the American colonies, big issues. The nature of our government, where does it come from? Was it, what was the nature of its founding? Is, something founded in 1787, excuse me. That's where our Constitution was created. Is that still applicable to us today? There are lots of big issue questions you can get into. But the best way to get into this is to look at the stuff that comes from the period in question to give you an idea of, okay, this is what these people were thinking. Because again, sometimes it's hard to get at what people were thinking. Sometimes people don't leave evidence up what they were thinking at the time. Other times people, of course, do leave evidence of what they were thinking at the time, which is partly they can have their own motives, right? Lots of people think they're on the stage of history, right? And they want to leave a good impression of themselves. They don't always necessarily tell you what they're really thinking. And so you have to sort of interpret. This is one of the things I want you to learn to do is don't take sources at face value all the time. Yes, there's a sort of surface meaning to what you might get. You'll read, for example, letters. There are letters in there by, say, John Adams during the Revolutionary War between him and his wife. Try to think deeply, right? When you examine a source, who wrote that source? Why'd they write it? Besides their name, who is that person? What social strata do they come from? What's their race and ethnic background? What's their religion? All those things will determine why they're doing something. Not determine it totally. People have free will, but it'll give them a background as to, okay, why did they think that? Why did they do it at that time period? Who we are helps determine the types of choices we make. It gives us a horizon for what you believe is true and false and other sorts of things. So try to relate that and try to, again, it's hard for students because we tell you to be critical thinkers, right? You're not good at it. And there's a reason why you're not good at it. Because if you're a critical thinker, it kind of means not trusting people. And our lives are built around trust. I tell you something, you trust that what I say is true in this video. I'm not telling you to be critical. You should be a little bit critical of me, but it's hard to do. People you like, figures in history you like, you'll take at face value. Again, don't hate them. I didn't say that. but okay, what else? Could there be another possible motive for what this person's saying, for what they did? Maybe you have a negative view of someone. Like, this person's the most awful person in the entire universe. Sometimes you look at things closely and maybe you think this person's a bad person, but maybe they had motives that were a little more understandable to you. Maybe even a little more justifiable than you thought, even if you still don't agree with them. This is what I want you to learn. Not everything in history is black and white. Some things are. Moral judgments tend to be easy. It's easy to make the moral judgment now, slavery is wrong. Big historical question. Why didn't people think it was wrong back then? Lots of reasons for it. Lots of things you can say. Lots of the people that were responsible for that were monsters. Some weren't. You'll find this if you study it closely. And these are the types of things you can take away from this. I want you things you can take into your own life. You're not going to remember this, of course, most of it when you finish, but try to get into it that way, and I'll try to help you out a little bit, like I said, in the comments and the question sections of the discussion. And so that's my overview of the course. Hope you guys have a great semester. Again, look for, when you go to Canvas, you'll see modules for each week. Take a look at the modules, take a look at the readings, go over it carefully. There's also modules, there's a module for the written assignments. I'm going to give you a little video detailing what each of those entails. And no video for the quizzes. Those are pretty self-explanatory. They're all multiple choice. I forgot to mention that. So they're multiple choice. They shouldn't be too hard for you. But finally, have good luck. Have a great semester. You'll see my smiling face once more with the video for the written assignments. Otherwise, we'll be communicating by through the discussion forum and through email. So have a great week, you guys. Good luck getting started, and hopefully I'll be hearing from you throughout the semester.